Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast. We're going to be talking about educational technology and innovation that is happening within the education world. I'm Lindsay Wallace. I'm an 8th grade science teacher, and one of my passions is including robotics education and coding within the core curriculum classes, so that way all students can have access to coding and robotics as opposed to just a elective class. So Bianca, why don't you introduce yourself for us?
Hi, I'm Bianca Charles, and I'm a college and career advisor, but I'm also an educator. My project is going to be about Agile in the classroom, bringing Agile project management and turning that into something that can keep teams organized throughout project-based learning. Jared, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jared Lindsay. And my innovation project is focused on computer science and giving students opportunities to focus on project-based learning through application development. What I want my students to do is develop an idea that they can build on for the entire year and produce a mobile application. Hopefully, they can probably monetize it if their business plan is strong enough. And that's where my goal is going to be focused with my innovation plan. Wayne, you're up next, good sir.
Jared, how do I follow that up? And your eyebrows are on point. You got them nice. So listen, I am Wayne Wilson, and I am a high school teacher here in Southern California. And my innovation plan is trying to bring project-based learning to a low-performing school. And my goal is to see whether or not the project-based learning format will improve student outcomes, as well as improve the level of rigor at our school site. So with that being said, I guess, Lindsay, we're back to you. Do you have any questions for us?
So maybe expand a little bit on that. What are some of the most significant challenges that you think educators are facing today? And do you have any ideas to combat that? Would be my first question for y'all. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Or I can take it. Jared, you raised your hand first.
Okay.
Well, everybody unmuted at once. What are the most significant challenges educators are facing today? I think that is a very large question, but if you had to localize it, I would say a lack of motivation in the classroom. There's a severe lack of motivation, and I make this comparison often. I graduated high school in 2009. Oh God, I just revealed my age on camera. Well, I graduated high school in 2009. Fast forward to the students, I graduated in 2019. The leap is profound. The fact that they have all these resources in comparison to what I had when I was in high school, and yet they don't know how to use them. So a lack of motivation, one, and I think in terms of the teachers, there's a greater expectation on us. And I'm not just gonna generalize it. There's a greater expectation on us in multiple areas. You know, how we handle our students, data, paperwork. Are you teaching this way? Are you teaching that way? Are you reaching this learner, this method, this methodology? There are so many different ways, and that they want us to do the job that it almost gets overwhelming. Fast forward to the present, COVID-19, where a great many teachers decided, deuces, I'm gone. And that's partially because they were overwhelmed. That all that they were normally, the chaos that they were accustomed to became more chaotic than they anticipated. And so to summarize, in terms of the students, their internal motivation needs work, and how we can do that, that's a podcast for another day. And in terms of the teachers, they're overworked. That's the best way I can put that. Anyone else?
I agree with that for sure. Wayne, what you got for us?
Well, I agree with Jared. I think student engagement, that's what I'm looking at on my in my innovation proposal. And I think that some of the stuff that he's talking about is correct. So I'm going to deal with two items, if you don't mind. The first item, when it comes to student engagement, I think that you have to build relationships with kids. I think that you have to give kids work that is meaningful and that can be connected to real life situations or scenarios. And that's where the project-based learning actually comes in, right? And I think that to sort of tag along with that, we have to remember that, as Jared said, this generation has more resources than any generation before it. And the resources are at their fingertip. There's no card catalog, there's no encyclopedias. They don't have to know, do I go to EA or EC, which encyclopedia do I go to, and all that stuff. And even some of you younger people might not understand that reference of what I just made there. But that being said, so it's easy for our students to get bored. And I think a mistake that we're making is that we are saying that kids are like us, not realizing that the way that kids operate right now, it's not the same. And so the way that we engage kids right now, if we're using old methods, they're going to be ineffective because that is foreign to the students that we deal with. That's number one. I think that the teachers being overwhelmed is a very legitimate issue. And again, I mean, we're just talking here. So you brought it up. I don't know the format. I agree. That is a very serious issue. The thing is that we need to help teachers understand, work on one item per year, work on 2 items per year. I think the mistake that many administrators make, and if you know me, I've said this before and it's been alluded to, and people think that I'm saying it out of I'm just being angry or brash. But the fact of the matter is, if you haven't been a teacher and you're an administrator, you don't understand that I can't work on everything all at once. No, let me work on 1 item, 2 items, 3 items for that particular year. Let me become pretty decent at those items, or at least comfortable. And then next year, let me work on 3 more items or 2 more items, whatever that number is. But the problem is, and this is why teachers get overwhelmed, and this is why they can't engage their students. They get overwhelmed because there's too many exteriors that they're working on. And so I still have to have a lesson for tomorrow. So I'm working on all these exterior items and have to have a lesson for tomorrow. Something's going to suffer. And let's be honest, if my boss doesn't come into my classroom on a regular basis, it's easy to make the kids suffer in terms of I can just give them a worksheet because that's easy, but my boss is going to see this report. And if I don't finish this report for my boss or this data extrapolation or whatever it is, then I'm going to get in trouble. So something's got to give. And so it's easier for me to give a worksheet instead of, making what my boss will actually see and what I feel like they're judging me on, making that look bad. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think you hit a lot of very good points there. One of the best things that an administrator told me was pick 1 or 2 things that you really want to focus on and get good at that. And not to say forget everything else, because it's important, right? You got to do some things, but really focus on that one thing. And that's just crazy that you brought that up. And that was one of the things that has always stuck with me is pick 1 or 2 things and get really good at that. Bianca, how about you? What about some significant challenges do you face? And especially you have a different perspective than we do.
I do. I think it's we're probably talking about maybe the lack of training. Again, like Wayne is saying, sometimes, say, for example, administrators go to another campus, they see something's working there, and they're just all gung-ho. They come in, they kind of just throw it at you and say, here you go, make it work. But it doesn't work for our campus, our size, or it won't work for your classroom, or maybe it won't work for the environment that you're in. So I think just the lack of training, and also the fact that, like you said, there's not enough time for you to get good at it. And if you're learning it while you're trying to teach it, you're kind of just rolling with the punches here. You're kind of just going with the flow because you really don't know enough about what you're going to teach the students if you're learning it yourself. And the other thing is basically time on task instead of like student engagement. Like there's a lot of so much like that they take away from the students. So the students don't have that. They have more of like a passive, they don't want to learn or be engaged in what they're learning because it's more like, here's time on task. You got to get these, this done here, X, Y, Z. And I think it doesn't give the students enough time to get engaged in what they're learning. It's like, for example, project-based learning is wonderful because you do get to have that student engagement and collaboration, and it helps them be more passive in their own learning.
Wayne, you got to add to that, or?
No, I just have a question, actually.
Yeah.
Have you ever had in college a professor who was at the top of their field, but they couldn't teach? So when I was my first year of college or second year of college, I had this lady who was like the head weather person for like in California, it's like the CBS News. All right. She was like the top weather person for the CBS News in Los Angeles, which is a large market. And she knew everything. And she knew what she was talking about, but she couldn't teach it. And I think, when we're doing so many things, it's not saying that the teachers don't know what they're talking about. It's the idea that you have to know how to teach what you know. And knowing it is different than being able to teach it, if that makes sense. And I think, Bianca, you just alluded to something like that in your last comment. I didn't write it down, so I can't quote you exactly. But the idea is then let people know how to teach or learn how to teach, and then student engagement will come. And I think that's what you were getting to at the end of your last statement. When people learn how to teach, they're comfortable in what they're teaching, they understand sort of what it should look like and how it will work for their clients. Dude, people, individuals, it's going to be great for student engagement, the students that are in their class, because they're in their comfort zone when it comes to teaching.
You got it. And then sometimes what something worked for 1 year might not work for the next group that comes in. You have a whole different group, a whole different environment, whole different situations. And so, yeah, you got great at what you did, but then you come in and you've got to retweak it because it's not going to be the same when you're trying to teach this group, and you're going to have to adapt. And adapting is the hard part when you don't know what are you adapting to, or how do you adapt that, or and how do you keep them engaged? Because at the same time, you're trying to say like, okay, I got to rethink, I got to replan, I got to redo this. But how do you keep those students engaged in their learning, as well as you not having the time enough to plan out some good, engaging, learning?
I agree with that for sure. If you have never taught the subject matter before and you're trying to do it for the first time, it's very hard to adapt and change it. I switched up teaching subjects and grade levels the first 4 years that I taught a new grade level and a new subject every time. It was very stressful, very miserable, always working on the weekends, trying to make new lesson plans. It was not a good time, but once you find that spot where you like it and you can explain those lessons 3-4 different ways for all those different learners, I think it really comes together for teachers. So for my significant challenge, I feel like I'm kind of picking a little bit of all of the things that y'all said. So because those students have so many more opportunities than we had when we were in school, and then therefore kind of like you were saying, Jarrett, their motivation is lower even though they have all these opportunities. I agree with Wayne that we have to pick something that's going to engage those students, whether it be we're going to do blended learning and work them that way. We're going to do project-based learning and incorporate that into our classroom. So that way they, have that more authentic learning that Wayne was talking about, or whether it be like robotics and include that in there somehow. Somehow you have got to make it relevant to their lives, applicable, and make it fit to your curriculum and to your personality the best that you can. Because maybe project-based learning isn't the best for everybody and blended learning would work better for them. It's going to be hard for a teacher who isn't willing to change to force themselves to do something that they're not comfortable with, because then the students are going to suffer, kind of like what you were saying, Wayne. You got to pick something. So I think it's really important that teachers say pick something to make their learning more authentic for those students and then go with that. So kind of cherry picked a little bit of all of y'all's things that y'all said there. So for our next question, Bianca, would you like to lead us through that one?
Next question is, how does the student's voice and choice play a role in your plan?
I'll go since I went last. I'll go first this time. So for me, I think it's important that whenever I give those students the robotics lesson, that I try my best not to structure it and give them so many, guidelines and stipulations as to what it is that I think it should be in my head. So that way they can remain creative and open to those little brainwaves that they get that I would never have, because some of them are so much more creative than I am. So I think it's important that I don't try to fit them in that box whenever I'm introducing that for them.
I think if we're talking about project-based learning and like incorporating, like I said, agile project management into it, I think a big, there's a motto that Agile has, which is fail fast and fail often. So I think it's really important also for students to be able to fail at something in a safe environment, where they can learn how to collaborate and kind of rethink what they're trying to do with the project and what they want to see and visualize to see at the end of the project. But at the same time, kind of say, go back to the drawing board a little bit and say, what could we do better? Or how can we improve this? And constant feedback is great for that with Agile and project-based learning. Anybody else?
Jared, come on, get those waves going.
Well, going back to the question where you said, how does the student's voice and choice play a role in your plan? So I don't know if everyone here has read the very beginning of my innovation plan, but there's a story in there, and I'll just give you the synopsis version. 2018, 2019, my students we tried app development the first time. Now, keep in mind, I had no clue what project-based learning is. That was just a teacher trying to do something. So we tried app design through, what was it? Android, because we had Android phones on standby. That did not play out too well at all. It did not work out well at all. And since then, I've wanted to do that. I wanted to revive that idea. I just never knew how. Fast forward to an opportunity to bring it last year that COVID kind of messed over, I'll be honest. And now fast forward to the conclusion of the master's program, and now I have a larger idea of how I want to implement. A lot of my students have an entrepreneurial spirit. A lot of them, they care about money, and I'll be honest, they do. So why don't I take their motivation and say, okay, you want to make money? Build something that can make money. Build me an application that can make money. Or in this case, build me an application where you're going to take your idea for what you want to do and translate it. So to answer the question, my students' voice and choice will be directly aligned to what they're doing. When we start the project, they're going to have to brainstorm and think, okay, what do I want to make? Just to throw out an idea, one of the projects that didn't get to be fully developed was a mobile application for barbers to find a barber in your specific area. That would have been the application. So someone who downloaded, okay, I'm over here in Sugarland area. Is there a barber near here? I'll just click into the app and say, okay, this guy charges $20 for a haircut. I'll go there. That's an idea. That's a service. So now they have to incorporate entrepreneurship in addition to creating their idea. They also have to develop the strong desire to finish their ideas. Like, okay, you're going to build me an app. You're going to build me a barbershop connecting app. You got to start from point A to point B. You have to follow these steps because you need to learn what you're doing. Because it's project-based learning. They still have to learn throughout the course of developing their project. So that's how student voice and choice plays into mine. Wayne, how about you?
Me, again, I'm on projects, and I'll give you an example. So the first thing is, I don't believe like the true purists, and I know that we all know this, but the true purists would believe that projects mirror what Dr. H does. The true project-based learning and all the research, it's something that you have to present to other people outside of the room, and there really is no answer per se. There's no 2 + 2 = 4. There is, hey, we need you to figure out how to put side airbags in a car. And the reason why I say that is because, Jared, you bring up a very good point. There has to be some learning. I still have to teach some standards. So the purists might argue that my projects really aren't projects. And I need to say that before I give you an example of something that I've done, that I still believe gives students choice and voice, but it gives them choice and voice within the realm of what we have to learn. And while that might not be acceptable to the most pure project-based learning proponents, it is it's the reality of what we have to deal with. And so we just did an earthquake kit. In my geography class, we have earthquakes, and the kids we're learning about earthquakes. And then the project was, you need to have an earthquake kit. And when I say an earthquake kit, I mean a bug out bag is what some people may call it, a backpack or whatever. And you have to put enough supplies in there to last. And there's a long story behind it, based on where we're at in the roads, not the freeways. If there was a major earthquake, we get our supplies from LA. LA would be done. It would be a wrap. So long story short, you have to have a bug out bag for 3 to 14 days. And so after explaining to them that we live 20 miles from the biggest fault in the world, right? And there's a place, we call it the hill. Actually, those mountains that I showed you guys before, we call it going down the hill or coming up the hill. So we don't say, are you going to LA? We say, hey, did you go down the hill or did you come up the hill or whatever? And going down the hill, going to visit their relatives in Los Angeles, they're going through the Cajon Pass, which is the San Andreas Fault, if that makes sense. The reason why I tell you that is because, they get choice and voice, but they can also see this could really happen. Like this could really be applicable. So their choice is, okay, well, what food are you going to bring? And, we can't go to McDonald's. Dude, there's not going to be a McDonald's, And if so, it's probably going to be looted because people need food. That's what happens in these types of situations. So in the projects, we might not give them complete choice, just do whatever. There might be, I like to say, guided choice, but within those guided choices, the students can express what their voice would show. And that's how I do it on all of my projects. So I'll give another one. My kids have to buy a car. But the choice in the voice, well, you can't buy a Lamborghini because you're a teacher and that's the salary. You make this salary. So there is still choice in voice within it's like the book we read last session where the gaming book, you give them the rules, you give them the outline, the inbounds, the out of bounds, and then you let them decide all the way up until they come to the out of bounds line or the inbounds line. Choice and voice.
Wayne, I think that's awesome because yes, you do have to have constraints within your projects. If you're just going to give them a project like, okay, whatever, build this, then first of all, they're going to be so overwhelmed. Most of them will not know what to do. And so you've got to give them constraints and, okay, this is where you're kind of headed, and then they can take off from there. But I teach earthquakes for earth science, and it's so hard to teach them about earthquakes because we don't, like in Texas, we don't have them that much, but y'all have them all the time. So that's probably a little bit easier for y'all.
We did the earthquake kit. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I think we finished it on a Tuesday. We had a 4.2 on a Thursday. So I'm like, what do you guys, this is like, could be real, type of thing. Anyway.
Real live action application.
Right.
Yeah.
I do like that real world stuff and that they're actually going to be using it for something later and to prepare, and then in the back of their mind, they're going to be like, oh, I remember I built this in this class and now I know how to use it later, so that's really good. That's awesome.
It makes me think for whenever we're teaching hurricanes, because Houston gets hurricanes, so we should tie that in. What should be in your hurricane kit? So maybe I'm going to tie that in for next year. Thank you for that idea.
You definitely should. I'm going to tell you something. So when we get to hurricanes and stuff like that, first, you said your kids don't understand earthquakes.
They don't understand hurricanes.
Hurricanes. They're like, it's just raining. No, bro, that's
well,
not.
if you need some videos or let me know, because I have some videos of some flooded things.
Yeah, no, I can imagine.
It'd be great if like your kids reach out to some kiddos that actually have been through hurricanes and the hurricane students can reach out to the kiddos that have to actually been through an earthquake. And then your go bags would probably be two different things because an earthquake might need something different than what somebody in a hurricane would need, So, I mean, some of the essential things will be the same, but there's some things that you might need if you're in an earthquake that you might not need if you're, but that'd be great.
A hard hat.
Yeah.
An umbrella, rain jacket. Yeah, a little different, but no, I agree. That would be really cool.
Solar blanket.
Yes.
MREs.
Awesome.
MREs. Eating those during what was that Texas one that we had?
Harvey?
Not it was before Harvey, but because that's when I remember having those the most. Power was out for I think 2 weeks.
That's a long time.
Oh, Ike, maybe?
Yep.
Or
Thank you.
Ike.
Ike was so much fun. So,
okay,
guys,
Jared, do you want to give us our next question?
Yes. So our next question, guys, how will your innovation plan help prepare students to be good global citizens of this beautiful marble we call Earth?
That makes me think of the Carl Sagan video, the Blue Marble Earth. I love that video. Okay. Sorry, sidetrack. So for my innovation plan, including robotics. I think that's really important for students because the world is becoming automated, and there are so many jobs and industries that are using robotics. And if they already know a little bit about maybe coding and just kind of generally how the robotic brain works, then I think that they would have a leg up against a student who's never experienced that, as well as those other skills that come along with that, like critical thinking and problem solving, that get, transferred when you're trying to code your robot. So that's how my innovation plan will help us.
I think I'm next. Globally, Agile project management is in pretty much every single component of the software business, but also in everything else that's out there now. They're starting to use it for a lot of companies, a lot of different places globally. And so if the students already have the terminology and know how to use it, then they're going to be able to go right into their new jobs or careers with that already, kind of like not having to have to train or to do it. They're going to already have the terminology. They already know how to use it. And plus it builds collaboration. And that's what we want our students to be able to do later with the 21st century skills. You're going to be collaborating, you're going to be meeting with people, you're going to be brainstorming, you're going to, use all these things. And so just having them already use Agile and use project-based learning or in anything else, they can learn how to organize themselves and organize their teams and work collaboratively with other people.
I actually like both Bianca and Lindsay responses, because Bianca, the corporate side of that, as much as our kids talk about, I want to be my own boss, okay, you're still going to have to either be an employee or the employer. So you're still going to have to learn both sides. And Lindsay, me and you, our projects align with each other because I'm teaching a skill. Or to some, let me give the visual version. I'm going to read a book real quick. It's dark outside. You know what? I should turn on my flashlight. I have no idea how to get home. Let me turn on my map. Let me check my mail. 4 things, 1 device. App development is, as I believe, the way of the future. And that is a skill that our kids can take to the bank. I'm part of the CT, technically, Career Technological Education. And the thing that I've begun to notice is, and I've begun to question is, am I equipping my students with the skills that they can take to the bank? I'm teaching them AP Computer Science A. I'm teaching them web design. But am I giving them the skills that they can eventually take with themselves? Can they design a web page for someone to get them paid $2,000? That's the question I've been asking myself as of recently. Excuse me. That I've been asking myself as of recently. So with app design, these students have the chance to take a skill, because companies are always looking for someone who can design them a mobile application. When referencing COVID starting, a lot of companies, especially the ones that closed, they weren't prepared for the full digital age. They were still living halfway between the digital age and the old days before technology became a thing. I get aggravated when I go to some stores and I say, "Do y'all have Apple Pay?" I'm like, "Oh no." I'm like, "What is wrong with y'all? Get with the program here. This thing needs to take money out so I can pay for a service." And that's just me being honest. That's because I see Apple Pay as a very safe and efficient way, since people didn't want people touching things, take my phone, scan the thing, I pay for my service or my good, go home. It was a fast and an efficient way. So that's my 2 cents. Essentially, I'm saying I'm teaching a skill and a valuable skill that my students can take for money. And will they need a degree for it? Probably not. Will they need a certification? Probably. But either way, they will have the skill that they need to take them somewhere in the future.
Man, Jared, I got to follow that up. Really? So, I'm going to say something here, and this comes with knowing your clientele. And so this isn't going to be popular. And so, Dr. Bedard, if you're listening to this, don't take their grade off. You heard their answers. Take off my grade. I'm preparing my kids to just be good citizens. I can't, we're not, global citizens, yes, but they need to be good tax-paying citizens. They need to be good husbands, good wives. They need to be good parents. And I know that is, that's kind of like, no, that's not what we're talking about. But for my clients, it's what we're talking about. I mean, I'm in a place that's, over 90% free and reduced lunch, high poverty rates, so on and so forth. So they need to be taxpaying means that they have a job. And to not be a burden to society means that, they're taking care of their family members and things like that. And so I do understand that my students theoretically are competing against other students in the global marketplace for employment. But at the same time, my kids really are competing against the kids locally in areas where those kids are going to get jobs before the students that I serve will. So I get it. My innovation plan should be supporting them to be global citizens. But the fact of the matter is, and I've said this before, Dr. Bedard, in some of my other stuff, I'm just concerned about my kids being good citizens. And so, again, you look at the projects, some of the projects that I do, how to buy a car, how to rent an apartment, like actually going through the process of looking at an apartment. What can you afford? What can you not afford? So we all know right now that the eviction issue is big, right? So right now in the state of California and nationally, there's a federal ban on evictions. It's getting ready to, it was supposed to end, and then they, re-upped it, extended it for a little bit longer. Well, I need my kids to understand that if you don't work, you don't eat, or if you don't work, and the landlord wants to evict you, there's a process that they can go through, and nobody's going to let you stay in the house just because you're you. And so my innovation plan, doing project-based learning, tying things into, especially in economics now, I'm talking more about my economics class, tying the money aspect, just like you said, Jarrett. Well, everybody thinks they're going to be their own boss, but that doesn't happen. You just you don't have the wherewithal to make it happen. So why am I saying that? Because my students need to learn just how to deal with the situations that are in front of them. Now, if we were talking about computer science, building apps and all that stuff, oh, definitely. I think they are fighting against those software developers who are in China, who are in Taiwan, who are in Canada, who are in Latin America, who are willing to do it. But we don't have AP computer science on our campus. You know what I mean? So in the areas that I teach, I'm going to teach you to be fiscally responsible and use those skills that you said, Jarrett, that will take you to the bank, that you can take to the bank, and that you won't be broke when you're at the bank. And then you can be a good Adelanto citizen, which will make you a good citizen of San Bernardino County, good citizen of California, good citizen of America, and maybe a good global citizen.
I think that's important, though. I don't think that that's bad at all to say that you're going to make them a good local citizen, teaching them life skills. Those are important skills that I wish I would have learned how to rent an apartment and make a business plan.
Those are the skills that's ignored.
Yeah, exactly. The financial literacy part of it is super important. Yeah.
Wayne, you want to bring us in?
Our question number 4 for tonight is, what would you guys say is the best educational technology, professional development, or professional learning that you have experienced? Give you a minute to think about it. It's double Jeopardy time, so make your wagers and let's see what we got.
If only we could play the music. I actually have an answer already. In terms of educational technology, I'm going to give you the unofficial event and the official event. So me being a new teacher, fresh out of water, drowning in his own paperwork, I printed out my work for my kids, computer science work on paper. Yes, I know, right? What kind of madness am I on? I must have visited California too many times. Anyway, so
you better stop, dude. You better stop. You got the green munchies.
Anyway. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So I printed out their papers and I started grading them, like, oh my God, this takes forever in a day. I have 6 classes. Okay. I am tired already. So fast forward to me visiting my coworkers and I'm looking at one of my coworkers' computers. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm typing in their questions on Skyward. I'm like, I can do that. Teach me your ways. She gave hope into my soul. I went from paperwork basically my entire teaching format changed. Not only was I able to get more done simply by digitizing my work. So I would take it was usually a 20 to 30 question page document per chapter, usually 2 homeworks, 2 quizzes, and program, et cetera, et cetera. I would digitize that. It would take me probably 30 minutes to an hour to digitize one assignment. And because I would always set them to the multiple choice, true and false, and all those other things, it would auto grade, except for the programs, which I would have to grade for myself. That 1 hour gave me the freedom to instantly grade my students' work and provide them feedback. Oh, your program has an error. I'm gonna send it back. You rerun the program. Now you're good. Just by learning from my coworker how to implement Skyward / Schoology / Edmodo successfully, I learned from them that digitizing my work as opposed to printing it out, 10 times better. Now that's my unofficial experience. My official experience is actually with the Apple program that brought me to Lamar. Them teaching us how to use the iPad, I've incorporated so many of those different skills of design. Them showing you how to actually design things using the iPad, using all the other apps within is great. How to create a presentation. I didn't even know I could create a presentation using Apple software. I actually need to replace my MacBook because I actually want to revive those skills. And even the core of my innovation plan is actually mobile applications. So I actually want my kids to use these tools as we're developing mobile applications because it was just so much fun and such a unique way to do things differently. Apple's very big on the creative side of technology, and that's why I enjoyed those series of professional developments throughout the course of the year. So that's my experience.
I would have to agree with you that some of the on-the-fly teacher-to-teacher training that I've learned is probably some of the most useful as far as like my everyday saving me time, that kind of thing. I did not know that Skyward, you can type questions into Skyward and it grades it for you. What?
I didn't either. I was going to say, you need to share that with us.
I'll give you the other tip. If you created it, you can use it again next year.
Yeah, that
It
is
stores it.
big. That is big.
I love it. It got me through for 2 years until we transitioned to Schoology. And then I was like, okay, Schoology, you finna play these games? I got to redo all my work again? Okay, I got you. I still reuse stuff the next year.
That is one thing that I wish that things talked better, from like Canvas to this to Blackboard to, so if you move schools or if you move something, then you don't have to. I wish that they did. Wouldn't that be?
Money.
So I was gonna say, Jarrett, your kids need to make a program that will let them talk to each other.
Yes.
To save the teachers money and get the programs not as much money.
They market it to the right educational entity.
True.
They will receive bank, and I'll receive my quarter profits.
I would pay for that service. I would. But my official educational technology training was also Apple, and it was specifically Apple for iPads and for science teachers specifically. I enjoyed it so much more than any other Apple training that I had been to, because it was usually just Apple. Okay, this is how you do this for, music teachers, math teachers, science teachers, all the teachers. But I enjoyed it so much more because it was specific to, hey, this is how you could use this in a science classroom. And on top of that, it was like learning how to use the tools that I was using in my classroom. So it was relevant and topic specific to me. So I agree with what you're saying there, Jarrett. Wayne, what about you?
Well, so we're a Google school, and trial and error, and I mean a lot of error, a lot. But the best organized, professional, not trial and error, not asking my students, how do you do this, is the Google certification classes. It's, some of them are a day, some of them are 2 days or whatever. And that's been amazing. The rest of the stuff, it's a waste of time. And the thing is I wonder sometimes if companies, they're giving you professional development, but really they're trying to see if their program works. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, yeah, we're going to train you, give you some PD, but I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they've been through all of the scenarios, or if they're using us as guinea pigs to see how it would work. But Google, definitely the Google certification.
I say guinea pigs.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I went from a Google school to then a Microsoft school. So then I had to convert all of my Gmail stuff from my school Google to my personal Google, and then turn it into Microsoft so that I could use it later. So Jarrett, get your kids on that, because
it's Jarrett.
The converter box. That's what we'll call it.
Yes.
And then Wayne's going to do the business plan for it. So there you go.
Actually, Jarrett sounds like he has that. So serious. I'm serious.
I had my kids do a business plan for a project once, but that's a story for another podcast.
No, but I mean, these are things like, listen, even if you failed, that's where your greatest room for growth comes, in the classroom. I'm not being cheesy. I don't want to get on a soapbox or anything, but I do think that as a result of what we opened up talking about, you've got to get your test scores. You've got to do this. And first year teacher, but we are you're going to be the data leader and all that stuff. It doesn't give you an opportunity to feel like you can fail, And then you guys are breaking my heart over here. You guys got Edmodo, Schoology, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, no wonder why Jarrett's smoking. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding. But listen, you guys got all this stuff going on, and
Complete the fifth.
huh? And it takes us back to the first conversation. Guys, how can you develop projects? How can you be a great teacher in the classroom if you have to sift through so many different items, so many different hats and all that stuff? Your district is doing you a disservice by giving you too much. Your district should be like, no, we're going to filter out, and we're going to be Google or Apple. We're going to be Schoology, and I don't even know. What was the thing that you said, Jared, about the form? I get that on forms.
I did Skyward, Edmodo, and Schoology.
Okay, so Schoology or Squidward, whatever it is. Whatever it is that you're doing, I mean, your school's got to filter some of that out. You know, last year, and I'll stop right here. We were distance learning. All last year we were distance learning. We started March 23rd of 2020, and we just started back in-person schooling, you know? And they introduced Canvas to some teachers, but we already have Google Classroom. So, like, why would they even introduce? It doesn't even make any sense why they would introduce Canvas. Well, if you want to use Canvas, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But why would you even do that? And even do that to kids? You got to make them learn two systems and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't like the idea. I think that there needs to be a filter and, you know, a laser focus.
So coming from Google Classroom and Canvas, I've used both. Canvas puts more power in the teacher's hands to be able to organize it and stuff. So from a teacher's aspect, if I was able to choose, I would choose Canvas. But I agree with you that schools for sure need to take the load off teachers. And I wish that instead of making us go to professional developments and things that don't make sense for the career and technology person to go to or the economics person to go to, that we could be planning our projects and actually getting to work with our fellow teachers and create those projects and stuff so that we wouldn't have to stay after school so much and use our personal time to create all those projects and those activities and things like that. But that's my soapbox. Bianca, did you have a good professional development that you have been to?
I think they introduced us this year to Kagan. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that.
Yes, structures.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that they're doing this year. Again, we don't really do anything with the professional development side, but that's something that was kind of interesting because it does touch on collaboration and kind of like the students working together. So I did learn a little bit of on that, and it was kind of interesting the way they did it was kind of fun. I think they touched about teacher like intrinsic motivation. Like if we don't have that motivation, then we're not excited about what we're teaching. And if we're not excited about what we're teaching, then how are we selling it? Because they said it's kind of like you have to sell what you're teaching. You gotta have to convince the students that what you're teaching is something that they can use later or they need, because a lot of it in their heads is, well, what am I going to use this for? Like, what do I need it for? But if you can get that motivation in yourself to say, okay, like I love your kit idea for the earthquake kit because it is something they can use later. I love the apps. You can use that later. I love the program. You can use that later. It gets you motivated, and it also gets the students motivated. And if you're motivated and they're motivated, then the lessons flow better, I think. So that was something that I learned, and I thought that was really cool.
Bianca, really quickly, can you explain to, a guy who barely made it through college, what Agile Scrum is and how I would use it in life if I'm a 17-year-old kid?
All right. So basically, we're going to break it down into just an organizational kind of skill. So if I wanted to do something really simple, and for example, we do it for your classroom, we're going to do your project-based learning. I'm going to put a chart up. It's going to have a to-do list. It's going to have what they're working on in progress. What are their impediments? Impediment like what's happening in that project that is holding them back from completing it. And then they're going to go to a review, and then at the end, you're done. You're going to take your project and you're going to break it down into your units, right? But this you're going to make into something like smaller tasks. So depending on what you want to do, you're going to say, I want in 2 weeks, this is going to be a demo that they can present to me, like how they're going to buy their car or how they're going to do that. So you're going to break that down and you're going to say, in 2 weeks, this is when we're going to finish our sprint, which is going to be at the end of that, they're going to have X, Y, Z, these things. And in the first week of that, each of the students, based on what they can do, their abilities, they're going to take a task. And in their group, that task is going to move through the board so they can see visually each student taking a task and completing it. Not like if you have a project-based classroom, maybe you have 4 kids. Well, one of the kids is always the one that ends up doing the whole project while the other 3 are kind of like sitting in the background, right? Well, this way you're taking a task and each of you is in charge of that one task. Now the teacher steps out of the way because you're the facilitator, or the kind of the scrum master is what it's called. You're the facilitator. You have nothing to do with it. They're taking their tasks, they're moving them along. You can kind of give them feedback at the end of that week when they're doing the review to say, okay, well, you know what, this didn't work, or how could you rethink this, or let's go ahead and do this. And then at the end, you can put that's done. They move on to the next week. They do the next tasks. This gives them the ability to, so if they have something they failed on or something that didn't kind of meet that demo, to be able to present to you the demo, they can go back to the drawing board with that one task and not the entire project. So they take the task back and kind of rethink, what could we do better on this? What still puzzles me about this? And then go with that task, breaking it down until they can complete it. But it keeps them organized in the project so that they know that each person is accountable for what they're doing, and that each day you're having a daily stand up of, okay, what did we do yesterday? Or what did we need to do for this project today? And it gives them a sprint meeting as well, saying, what are we going to add to that, to the next tasks? Or how are we going to do this? So that they become a team collaborating on how they want that project to be at the end. Not just, okay, we want the app, but what the driving question is and how they're going to prepare their tasks so that they can meet that driving question. But it kind of just keeps them organized. And it's really simple to do. You can do something simple as making a chart on the wall so they can see their progress using sticky notes, or you can get a little bit more advanced using some of the software that they use for other project management, things like Monday and things, just to keep them. We even use Microsoft Teams because it's free, and you can use that as to kind of make their tasks and in progress. And I do that with my team as well. And each time we get to say, I need a new task, Wayne, we were trying to look at this pricing or something. Can you look that up? And then Wayne, you're assigned that task and you're going to build on that. But each person is accountable for it. So that's how I would use that in project-based learning. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
No, that makes perfect sense. I'm going to actually tell you what I think the weakness is. We talked about choice and voice and time constraints. And remember, we talked about that earlier. The weakness in project-based learning for me is time. Because, Jarrett will finish the task maybe super quick. Lindsay's going to finish the task quickly. You're going to finish the task quicker. And then, here I am 2 days behind. And I may not have been off task the entire time. You know what I mean? It's just my pace of work. And so I see that's the biggest issue I have. And then, shame on me. I stand in front of the class and I'm like, hey guys, where are we at? Have you purchased car number 2? Have you looked at the financing rules for car number 2 from this dealer? Where are we at yet? but I can never get a solid feel of completion. And then some kid who's like, I didn't really get to this, and and I'm grading their stuff. Why didn't you get to this? I was too afraid to ask or put my hand up, and everybody else was done, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I guess that's something that really, man.
It keeps you also, you're visualizing as they're moving, who's still behind, what's the impediment. So if you're seeing that person still sitting on that task in progress and it hasn't moved, you can come back and say, what's your impediment? What's going on? Why hasn't this task moved? And they can say, well, we're waiting on Jarrett. Jarrett hasn't completed the looking up the pricing for us. And so, okay, Jarrett, what's your impediment and why are you having trouble? And this is where Jarrett will ask you, I had that question and I didn't want to ask. Well, here's how you're going to talk to Jarrett only. Jarrett will be able to work on that task, and then the project keeps going. But it's not like the project completely fails because we're not waiting 8 weeks and then Jarrett decides, well, I never asked, and here's my project, but it's not done. You're going to know that in 2 weeks, Jarrett, his demo is ready, and your whole team's demo is ready because they're all held accountable for their tasks. And then you're seeing the tasks move along. So you're seeing what's in progress, what's ready for review, where you're going to be the reviewer. You're going to say, okay, this XYZ is great. Let's keep going. Your demo's ready. Let's go to the next sprint. And you could break down your say your 8-week plan into 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, So you're breaking them down into sprints. So you're always seeing a demo of what they're going to produce at the end. And it could be that they started with the project that they thought this driving question was going to be going this direction. But as you're feeding this information, as they're going back to the drawing board, as they're collaborating, they might say they take it to a different direction. Their project could turn into something really great or something useful or something else, But you're seeing it in progress as they're going, and you're able to show them, hey, this is where you are in progress. And it could be as simple as, like I said, putting it on a wall. That's the cheapest way to do it. Or you can do it on a whiteboard, or you can do it science fair, those fold outs. Okay, each table can have that, and they have their to-do columns, and they're building their stickies. They're going to talk to each other saying, this is a task that I think we need to do for our project. And they're the ones kind of leading, like student leading the projects. And so you're just kind of, plugging in some ideas, but you're not the center of the attention. They're the ones that are leading that program, and they're the ones that are building the task, and they're the ones that are getting it to the end. And they're responsible for the demo. And if they're not ready for the demo, they have to figure out what is holding me back. So that's what's good. It's an organizational thing. It gets everything off of you and onto the students. So.
I think that's awesome, Bianca. That's super important with project-based learning. If you don't have that structure and that sort of self-reporting and accountability built in, then can be detrimental for some of those groups when they get stuck and they're scared to ask. Okay, so we have one more question for our people here today. Our last question. Perfect world. No budget constraints for your innovation project, your plan. What would you want to do in the perfect world for your project? I'll go first if y'all don't want to. So my perfect world, no budget constraints. I would love to have, be able to have robots that each group could build and then put that on a shelf. And then the next class, each group gets their own robot that they can build and fully be in control of. So I would need, 4 classes times the number of groups that I have, number of robots, and all of the supplies. So perfect world. And then, storage, big places to put those. So that's another thing. So perfect world, that's where I would go with that. But sadly, I do not have that. What about y'all?
Hey, in a perfect world, I'd be as rich as a sultan. But in a perfect world, in terms of my project, so another quick backstory for one of our previous assignments. Literature review. It's one of them. The point is, I found a source from Edutopia that I love, and I actually it actually became the foundation for one of my larger pieces of one of my papers. Their computer science PBL is a IT department, high school ran IT department, and I was like, wow. These kids are really, really doing it. Like the school is a 1-to-1, just like all of our kids now. All of our kids are 1-to-1 because of COVID. And it's amazing. As I was, the video is short and I'll share it with you guys later. Seeing these kids. So if I had no restrictions and all that other stuff, I would want to venture out into creating a IT department, a school-led IT department. We'll still have the app development system as a foundation, but since my school is based around 4 computer science courses, one of the beauties of my program was my students could complete their coursework by junior year. So that's 1, 2, and then 2 classes in 1 year. That wasn't impossible. So by the time you're a senior, you could take this advanced course where kid comes up, say, my speaker isn't working. I can't hear my teacher as he's talked. Now we have a fully functioning IT department. They could be trained by professionals, not just me, or even better, this district's IT department can co-sign and say, hey, we'll train your kids. One, that removes a lot of headache from them, because if our kids are managing, the school's IT problems or the students' IT problems, it teaches them, collaborative skills. It teaches them business skills. It teaches them so many different skills that, that is common for IT personnel and staff, how to talk to someone, how to communicate, how to fix the problem, how to analyze the problem. So, to make a long story short, with no limits, I want to expand into building an IT department, but also maybe even have this in other schools within the district I work with. Hey, let's all implement an app development initiative. When my innovation plan was first started, it was actually a collaborative cohort between the middle and high school. It would have been also college as well. But the college version of the Apple program kind of still is tweaking itself, still working out the kinks. So I would actually want to continue that, revive the middle school component of my original innovation idea, where the high school kids and the middle school kids collaborate. The high school kids teach and mentor the middle school kids on how to become better while at the same time growing themselves. So that way, when the middle school kids come to the high school, having learned this app development stuff, they're already ready for the computer science courses and the rigor that we have. So that's my expansion project. It's essentially app development or computer science touching lives in multiple places.
That's awesome. Wayne, Bianca, what about y'all?
In perfect world. Well, Agile doesn't cost anything. It's just your time. And so I'd like if teachers
you can pay people for their time.
Yeah.
To learn about
it. Yeah.
Time is money.
Yeah. And the other thing was with my innovation, the first part of it was having that program to teach the students, because I actually wanted to do something like after they learned how to do the different methodologies, they could actually sit for a certification in Scrum Master or something and automatically start the career that they want as a Scrum Master or project manager or something like that. So that would be something that I would be interested in if the school would actually pay for that certification. Would be great.
Bianca, I just want to say this real quick.
Mhm.
Thank you for teaching me in this session what my friend's job is. I never understood it till this day.
Oh yeah.
He's like, Lindsay, yeah, I'm a Scrum Master now. I'm like,
Scrum Master, yeah. And it only takes a short certification and you can jump right into a good career. And I know they start pretty well here in Texas. I don't know in other areas, but
he lives in Florida.
Yeah, so they start pretty well, and you can get, just at it right just with your small certification. And that's just, I'm talking about a weekend, sitting at a weekend thing to learn it. You're already starting at 65 or 75,000. And then as you jump into project management, because that's what I was doing before, you're going to go into the 100,000s because you get your project management certifications. But if you're teaching your students this already and they have the terminology, and then they go and sit in one of these training classes and then they get certified. I mean, and the classes don't cost a whole lot anymore. And you see other companies like Intuit and all these other companies, because they need Scrum Masters, and they train their engineers how to use this so that they understand the terminology when they do get their Scrum Masters at work. And you're already sitting at a career, and you didn't have to go to a 4-year university. And some of these students might want to start there and then start, jump into something else. If they get interested in programming or something, they can go back and take some more courses and maybe learn programming, or maybe go to a university. But it gives them some options for some of the students that are not college bound. Maybe they want certification instead. That's a good certification to get into, because you're learning a whole bunch just being a project manager. And you're working with your engineers, and you're working with your stakeholders, you're working with your business partners and things like that. So it's a good career.
Wow. Man, I'm going to look for that for the weekend.
I was thinking the same.
Seriously, consulting, this is crazy. But anyway, let me get back to real life here. Okay. So for me, the first one actually doesn't cost. I've thought about it. I just haven't put it together. And now this question is convicting me. So I'm going to have to make it happen. And what I would like to do is reach out to business people, not necessarily, maybe there might be some actors, athletes, quote unquote, famous people, but I would like to reach out to business people and have Q&A with them, with the students asking. I'm not talking about, there could be some 7-figure business people, some 10-figure business people, but there could also be somebody needs to know, how did you get that Wendy's franchise or that Burger King franchise or the McDonald's franchise? Kids in our community need to know, it's not out of reach. I mean, it is, but it's not. How did you get that AM/PM franchise? And so I would like to have guest speakers. So now that you've convicted me, I'm going to have to, you just added something else. I thought when the classes were over, I would be done, but now that's number one. And number two, and I will tell the story behind this. I don't want to, take up too much more of your time on this podcast, because I know your listeners might tune out, but I would like to get my classes into product design. Listen, they're a multi-billion-dollar market, and they're not designing anything. And I think Jared is right there. The kids know the phones better than the adults. So they would actually know what to design. I say that because one year, it's like the first or second year I did this, I'm like, guys, we are going to come up with a project. I mean, come on, it was rough, and it was it was horrible. And these kids came up with a deep fried macaroni ball, and the crust is potatoes. So macaroni and cheese inside a potato top, basically, right? And you deep fry it and you sell it with dipping sauce. And their idea was to market it to Domino's or something, Don't you know, for a short time, maybe it was 2 years later, I would see students and I'd be like, guys, have you been watching TV? They'd already graduated, you know? Have you been watching TV? They actually have what you guys thought about. Like, you know, and they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm here at the movies, whatever. You know what I mean? But I say that because it's things like that let the kids know that you have a talent. You might not be talented in algebra. You know, you might not be talented in chemistry, which eventually, if you're going to be a product developer, you've got to understand a little bit of chemistry. You've definitely got to understand algebra, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about. And then to be able to see something like that through, that would be so awesome. But, you know, who knows? But the first thing, you guys have convicted me. Now I got to try and make some connections, call people and see who knows who, and have these guest speakers on. And then the product design, maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Our innovation plans will evolve past our graduation. I
think so too. I like that idea too, Wayne, because you can also get the startup companies and how they struggled, or what did they need, or what should they have learned in economics class that could have helped them when they're doing their startup. Where do you start? Because I know I did a startup when I was younger, and I didn't know you had to go do your business plan. I didn't know you had to go talk to certain people, you know. And so I just thought, no, we can start this company, and here, let's put this money into it. But really, everybody's going to want the business plan. Everybody wants to see that. What is your plan for the future, and how is it going to expand? And how do you see, you know, how much you're going to put back into the company? So it's good that you're going to bring your guest speakers in, because they're going to give them an eye opener of, hey, you know, you can't just go up and start a stand or start something, you know. It's like there's always going to be some kind of plan, and the people that don't know the plan are going to be the ones that are going to fail first, because they didn't know where to get started. But then, you know, some of these students that you have here, they can say, oh, that's how economics is going to be helping me, or that's how this project that Mr. Wilson was telling me about buying a car is actually going to be essential for this, you know. So it kind of ties them in. Plus, it gives them networking skills, because they're going to also be able to talk to some of those people that are going to come in and start talking to them. Hey, this is how I built. I know my niece, she worked for Smoothie King for high school and some of her college career. And all of a sudden she became a manager. She kept going to general manager. And then she said she opened her own Smoothie Kings. So now she owns Smoothie Kings and stuff, you know. And so it's like, but how did she get there? And the only way she did was because she met these people who told her, hey, this is how you start this. This is what you need to do. This is how you buy that franchise, or this is how much you need for an investment, or things like that. But the connections that you're going to build with the people that are coming in are going to open their eyes to say, it is possible. And now, well, my niece owns these Smoothie Kings now, and it's like she's making more than me, and she's a kid. But anyway, still, it's just, you know, it's you get started somewhere. And it starts with somebody telling you, go this direction, because I went, you know, this is the route I went, you know.
For sure.
Well, looks like we are running out of time, so we will go ahead and let y'all go. But if you've made it this far with us, we appreciate you. Hope you learned something about education today in the world, and our soapboxes, and how we can make it better.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.